Okay, well, again, the illustrative point I was making by citing Illinois politics was that I think even the average person on the street recognized the extraordinary nature of these events and therefore resorts to historic language to try to contextualize and make sense of them. That these are unique situations, both, I mean, the good, the bad, and the ugly, and we've got all of them. So, not being necessarily a specialist in Illinois political history, I suspect my comments probably would have reaffirmed the sentiments of the average citizen of my state. My larger point, however, was that more often than not, the average citizen stops there. That if we aren't dealing with the unprecedented, what good is history? So that's the larger task for us who are teachers of history and for the students. How does history impact the ordinary living of life if we don't have a first-time occurrence of something that is admittedly unusual? Is there any relevance for history for the ordinary living of our lives and the shaping of policy as well? So I think that's where the professional historian might be able to speak into and broaden the kinds of off-the-hand comments that we'll get from most people on the street.
Maybe we can take one or two more questions because we don't want to miss the cookies. Historians being rooted in the material. Yes, Chris. We need to talk.
I'm reminded that I think Jesus had something to say about that along the lines of how easy it is to spot the speck in our neighbor's eye and completely miss the plank in our own. And collectively, that is perhaps often the case, historically understood. The perils of studying history, but living in it.
What you're saying, I would say that applies to my life. I've been so wrong. But does it mean that I can't learn from that? Or I shouldn't look at it? I think I would say quite the opposite. It is because we've been wrong that we need to look at it. Now, it can be despairing, but so that's one possible answer, is that if well, I'm hoping that's true of you too, and you look at your own life and say, oh, how foolish. No? It's just me.
but Marianne, if you put together what you said and what Chris said, and sometimes I want to say you've answered your own question. I mean, at one level, in the sense that the very self-consciousness with which you approach that process of realizing that we too could be wrong, I think is part of beginning to move out of the blindness of the moment. Now, I think it's complicated, but I would couple that with what Marianne said. Part of what I love about history, and I do, of course, I need to be careful. We're all historians up here, so we all love history best, and there's lots of other disciplines out there in the audience, so I don't want to be imperialist about this at all. But what I would say is this: what I love about history is I think it is very like the messiness of life. If you study it well, it doesn't give you absolute truth about anything. It doesn't give you watertight arguments about anything. I do think history, in the sense that it is like life, if you approach the study of history the way you approach the study of life, can make you wise. And wisdom is different than having watertight arguments for things. So I would second what Marianne said, but add it to your own comments, that the very messiness you articulated is part of the hopefulness in there. But I don't think you can get beyond that messiness. I would just say that. But you can't in your own life either.
Well, what I think you might be getting at is, can't this in fact paralyze us, right? To say that we're going to screw it up. It's inevitable. You know, we see one generation after another down through the ages messing up, or aiming at, with the very best of intentions, accomplishing something that had ironic consequences that if we don't live to regret, our children and grandchildren will. So, you know, doesn't that just kind of bind you up? And I think what you say is it can make people feel that way, or it can turn them cynical to say, well, you know, whatever, I just do what I want, because the consequences are, you know, I can't control them anyway. They're beyond me. I think what you see though is that people, in fact, who look to history, who are leaders, who are looking for discernment, who are looking to make decisions, find that there is in fact a wealth of added experience there, a wealth of, you know, possible scenarios about how things have turned out in the past that can in fact help them to make wise decisions for the moment as best they know, and once again remembering that it's all provisional anyway. I guess for a Christian engaging in this kind of decision making and action in our own time, I think we have the added comfort of even if we screw up, we serve a God who can make things come right in the end. And so, you know, do our best to be faithful and to be wise, but leave it in other hands.
Well, and what Joel just said, I mean, no one's exactly said these words today, and I think they need to be said. I don't think it's any accident that so much of the biblical text is narratives of people who were messing up, and you know, when certain people in the past have gone to excise some of the parts of Scripture that they thought were not edifying. Well, there's some of the stories that really describe how people messed up pretty badly. And the Scripture, again, it's replete with narrative after narrative of people who, in the messiness of life, have experienced God's redemptive power. And so I'll just say this: I don't think it's an accident that so much of the biblical text comes to us in the forms that are very close to the kind of thing that historians engage in. They're narratives of where people have met the worst in themselves, met the worst in others, and yet God has met them where they are. And again, I don't think it's an accident that the scripture is not presented to us in the form of a logical syllogism. And I don't know what that would look like if you tried to give scripture in a syllogism. But I'm saying syllogisms are not complicated enough, as good as they are, to deal with the messiness of life. So I'm more hopeful about, this kind of thing, Chris, than I would be about some other disciplines, as even though there's reason for pause and it can be depressing.
Well,
so.
I think the general agreement on this panel is that you're on your way to being an excellent historian. You're showing very promising signs. I want to thank you all for coming this afternoon, and I'm going to let you go until at 5 o'clock. Dr. Pointer will present his talk here in this very room, but we'll give you another 10 or 15 minutes to get to the cookies. Thank you for coming, and thanks to the panel for their remarks.